it's time for Connor's Conspiracy Corner.
Hosted by Paige!
We planned that, guys.
I love
We
this
planned that one
really
out.
exciting intro.
Yeah.
And now my laptop won't turn.
So Connor's not here this evening, guys, but we are still doing a Conspiracy Corner as Paige tries to get her laptop loaded up. She's got a good one for us. It's a banger.
It's a short one. I will say it's not very long.
It's still Connor's Conspiracy Corner, but with Paige.
Don't look, you can't see this.
You got to pull it closer because I can't resist the
Well,
urge.
I can't read
Yeah.
around my mic then.
Here, just hold it.
Here, I'll put it this
Hold it somewhere right around here.
Chris is
that's
putting it up in her face.
Okay.
Switch to you.
All right, guys. So in the crazy times we live in right now, right? We can't rely on a whole lot of stuff. We're finding out, everything's kind of falling apart. Stuff's really different. Stuff is changing. But there's one thing that we can always rely on throughout time, forever. We have paintings. We have depictions. It goes way back. It's the moon, right?
Yeah.
Moon will always be there for us.
Love the moon.
That's what my pappy always told me. He said, boy, you can rely on the moon.
you can count
So-
on the moon.
What if I told you guys the moon is not real?
What?
It is, in fact,
Cheese?
a hologram. It does not exist.
Oh, I've heard this before. Holographic
So-
moon.
Most of my information comes from one source. It is a video called Updated. The moon is not what you think. All right?
Was the previous video the moon's exactly what you think?
I couldn't find a previous one, so I don't know.
Guys, the moon's
This was-
exactly what they
this
say it
is
is.
the-
Updated. No, it's
Correction.
not.
Front page,
So-
correction. Moon is not what you think.
This video goes into this guy's main complaint, his main source for why it's not real, is he was filming the moon for a year. And it was actually really cool. He was filming through a telescope and he got some really interesting shots. They're super close up. He got video during the day, during the night, like really impressive, cool stuff. But at one point he's like, I noticed something. There's a holographic wave that goes across whenever he's recording one night. And the way it looked to me in the video that I saw this, there's 2 clips of it happening, is like, you guys remember on old TVs where sometimes it would get that like wave that would kind of just pan down across it? It was that. And it happened like twice. And
He saw a scan line or whatever you
pretty
call it,
much,
essentially.
yeah. It just looks like an old TV where it kind of just like pans down it. He said it is obviously organic and not from the camera. He said he tried just looking at the moon, but he couldn't see it that well because it's so far away.
I picture a guy like, he pulls the microphone away and is like, pulls his glasses down and looks real close.
Yep. And he says that him panning the camera up and down proves it because the wave catches up to the camera, and so you don't see it anymore.
This sounds like Jello screen.
Oh, yeah. Like if you
rolling
move
shutter.
your camera,
It sounds like rolling
especially
shutter.
on digital cameras, if you rock it back and
It's a
forth a bunch
digital
of
camera.
times.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
rolling shutter.
It's a digital camera. He mentions that he isn't positive that's a hologram. He's not entirely sure what's going on there, but that's what he's calling it for lack of a better word.
Something.
Might be a mystical witches situation.
And so there's a few different kind of theories that come together for this one. There are some people that think that the actual moon is there. And there's one person that hypothesizes that you can actually see through the seas on the moon whenever you're zoomed in real close, and you can see structures underneath it. And so some people think that it's a hologram over the actual moon.
Did you say C's?
Yeah.
As in the
like
ocean?
the old
Oh, the
what you they call it the sea
S-I-A-S.
of. Yeah.
I thought you meant the letter C's.
No, sea, like what used to be oceans.
Or when you catch the moon on the horizons, you can see the strings that hold her up.
Or I guess just air is what they call the sea on the moon. But they say that you can actually see through that and you can see structures underneath it. So there are some people that think that they're just hiding what they're actually doing on the moon from us,
Which is
so that we
who's
don't get
the
to see
they?
it. There's a lot of different.
I
There's
don't
a,
want the answer usually.
there's a lot of different things that come together for this theory. So that's one theory, is that we just don't need to see what's going on the moon. They don't want us to know what's going on, so they have a
Of course
hologram
they don't.
over it that looks normal.
The movie Moon is what's happening. Sam Rockwell's up there with a bunch
Getting
of his
cloned.
clones. Yeah.
There are other
In that
theories
helium-3.
that it's a hologram to hide Planet X, so that we can't see Planet X behind it. So that's one theory.
I want to see Nibiru coming.
And then
When it hits us.
one of the last theories I read about it was so obviously if the moon's a hologram, then the moon landing is fake because the moon isn't real.
Obviously.
Right.
And so at the time of like the big space race, we were dumping a ton of money into NASA. And scientists have gone back and looked
You just
at.
quoted scientists.
I want to make that. Yeah, I air quoted scientists.
NASA.
Have looked at the budget and say they can only come up with a tiny portion of it, and it doesn't make sense. Like, where did the rest of the money go? So the theory is that they have a hologram of the moon to hype up people so that we can funnel all this money into NASA, which is then funneled into an underground shadow government.
Oh, and that's where the lizard people live.
Yes.
That's
And
the basis
so,
of their economy.
You'll notice I brought up in the beginning that we have all these depictions of the moon, like in art and in history. Like, it goes way back.
On
so,
outhouses.
So, like, yeah. So, like, how did we... How is it a modern thing that we have a hologram of the moon? What is that about?
Yeah, right.
So either they are depicting a sun or a different celestial body,
They're pretty different.
or they have been put there in the early 20th century by the U.S. government to assure the masses that the moon is real and always has been real.
Oh, that makes more sense, actually.
Yes. And my reference that I kept going off of says that this is obviously depicted in the DreamWorks logo. Didn't elaborate on how, but just that the DreamWorks logo exists, and therefore it proves the moon is fake and a hologram.
Well, here's the thing, right? Imagine that it's you're running NASA and the federal government, and you're trying to prove the moon exists, and you just 3 years earlier murdered the president that promised we'd go to the moon.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, okay, well, we got to create a fake moon to go to. Hey, there's this Steven Spielberg guy. He's 14 right now. Let's cue him on what's going on. That way, in the 80s, he can create Amblin Entertainment and have a moon.
Yep.
And eventually then found DreamWorks.
Yeah.
And the other reference was Stanley Kubrick and The Shining.
Okay.
And you can tell it's fake because Danny wears a sweater that has NASA and a rocket on it, and he stands up as he launches the rocket. I still don't understand what that means or how that proves anything, but that was one of the things that was brought up.
Well, I think that what that was an art director who was like, oh, hey, he's got a rocket on his shirt. Let's have him play with the rocket. And
Yeah.
he's
No, this
doing
was this guy's evidence for it, for the
Well,
moon not being real.
We all know that the moon landing was filmed by Stanley Kubrick. This
Yes.
is not
Yeah,
a thing
yeah,
that we
yeah,
we
yeah.
haven't broached this on.
And the reason-
Connor's
We're waiting to get the research.
yeah.
And the
We
reason
have a team on it.
it was faked is because the moon is not real. It's
Hmm.
simply a hologram.
But why?
Shadow government. Or to hide Planet
Because-
X. Or because we don't need to know what's going on the moon. Those are the three things I found on why.
What's
Think-
going on the moon?
Think
stuff.
about it. Think about it, guys. Right? You get everybody all jazzed up. Everybody's all patriotic. They're like, we got to go to the moon. John F. Kennedy said, we're going to the moon. What was the budget to go to the moon, and what does that equate
Like 50
to?
bucks?
No,
No, it was like
it was at least
217
Oh, it
billion
wasn't
or
like
something
50
like
bucks?
that. No.
adjust that for inflation. You could start your whole. You could fund
Shadow government.
Well, there's already a shadow government. They're the lizard people, and they
Yep.
live in a hollow Earth,
Yep.
right?
It all comes back around.
We do know that.
Think about how many flies you could buy to feed the lizard people
Yep.
on
There are,
that much in 60s money.
I will say, there are a lot of crossover theories that kind of dip into this. Like flat earthers have a take on
Oh, like all of these
The moon
conspiracy
not
theories
existing,
like,
the-
end up intertwining.
all the space, NASA's evil space hoax stuff crosses into this. Not that everybody who thinks the moon landing was fake thinks the moon doesn't exist.
Right.
But there is a small amount. It was interesting research, I will say that.
Who was? Did you say the guy's name or no?
No, I did not.
Okay, you're not going to,
Nope.
right?
Pierre Leclerc.
Pierre
Nope,
Leclerc
but the video
says,
cool is called "The Moon Is Not What You Think," and there was a follow-up video called "The Moon Is a Luminary."
And then there was a follow-up video that said,
Wait.
actually, I'm
Doesn't
wrong,
that just mean the moon reflects light?
I don't
which is true.
I don't know.
That's true.
There's
It's
a
like, update. The moon's real.
That's what I was going to say.
crossover that I almost talked about, but didn't feel like getting that in depth into it, was something called Space Warden, which is about like a secret UN space force that has a whole bunch of fleets and ships and motherships.
Well,
in
that's
space.
real.
Yeah, and so it could be Space Warden that's doing shit on the moon, and that's why they're hiding it with their hologram.
Space
Warden.
Warden.
Which, if you Google, brings up like a board game
Let's look it up.
and a video game and like maybe comic series. There's a lot of things, but
The secret space program, black
Yep.
budget.
Space Warden.
That's what comes up first for me.
There's some interesting crossover.
The secret space program from the Huffington Post. These are legit sources, dude.
No, but if you read that one, it's totally like an editorial conspiracy theorist who
Oh.
is like, should we just throw this out? No, we should not. It
I
is
think
obviously
not.
real. So
Okay.
I read that one too.
Interesting.
But yeah, guys, so the moon is not real. All made up.
It's made of cheese.
It's a
Or-
hologram for one of three reasons.
That's you know you're looking at it really as like a half is glass. The
Half
glass
is glass
Half
full.
is glass full.
The glass is half empty when really maybe the moon's a real hologram. Instead of saying the moon's not real, it's a real hologram.
Well, there's also maybe it is real and there's a hologram over top of it so that we
Yeah.
can't see what Space Warden's doing.
Because they're mining it. There's a prison. That's the prison where they send.
Space Warden sounds like it would be a character in like a B movie, like, oh no, better watch out, Space Warden's
Yeah,
here.
it
Also
does.
sounds like a early 2000s techno band.
It
Yeah.
does.
Space Warden sounds like a like a driving EDM band.